I am not an attorney. I have degrees in music composition and music theory. So what I'm describing is from that perspective. I'm not offering any kind of legal advice. By now you may have seen a news item that all possible melodies have been copyrighted. That is not true. What happened was a couple of people decided to algorithmically produce billions of melodies, publish them as a collection, and then submit that collection to public domain. Why am I smiling? Why should I be happy about this? It's good and it's bad depending on what your specific interest is. One obvious consequence is that if you write a melody that you want to treat as original, you can't defend it if it happens to be part of that public domain thing. On the other hand, somebody can't as easily sue you for your melody. So you can't sue somebody can't sue you. So is that good or bad for musicians? Well, it's probably better for most of them as people writing melodies, just because people are less interested in suing somebody than they are in preventing themselves from being in a lawsuit. These melodies are, I mean, I have not seen them, but presumably if you're willing to accept, yeah, I don't actually own that melody, you can go ahead and use it without paying for it. In most cases, inevitably, and I don't know if this has been discussed anywhere, inevitably some of those melodies are going to duplicate pre-existing melodies, and they haven't caught that, but eventually they will. So they aren't really in public domain, as far as I understand it, because if an essentially identical melody already exists and is already under copyright protection, you can't register it again under public domain. But if you are a songwriter and somebody sues you for your melody, and you can show, well, that was in the, the burden isn't on you, but if you can say, well, I think it's in that collection, show me that it's not. You can say, well, I thought I was ripping off the public domain collection in good faith, which I have the right to do. The person suing you has to show their melody. One thing they can do is they can show their melody existed before that other melody popped up in that public domain collection. And they probably have to demonstrate that you took their melody and not the one from the public domain, which is going to be hard to do because, again, burden of proof. And the other thing that makes it weird is if the melodies are only extremely similar, and your melody is closer to one of the melodies in the public domain collection than it is to that other melody, that probably makes their case very weak. So even if somebody can win a melody copyright lawsuit at this point, the process for doing it is going to be so convoluted that it might not even be cost efficient. I don't know. In any case, it complicates the matter in a way that should cause a typical or an average person writing melodies to have to worry about it less, and somebody trying to protect something that they believe is original from use by other people. It makes it more complicated for them. That doesn't mean that there's nothing to copyright. It doesn't mean that there's nothing to protect, and this is my next point. It's a less obvious consequence of this is that attorneys probably have to shift their copyright focus away from melody into something else. Well, what else is there? The next obvious thing is the lyric. Most pop music does have a lyric, and I looked at this. Starting from 1985, if you want a #1 hit, you better have some words in it. And even before that, it was a little bit tough. So the lyric is probably going to remain comparatively easy to argue about as a copyrightable object for the foreseeable future, and the reasons are mathematical. There's billions of melodies. Sounds like a lot, but when you look at what can be construed as a distinct melody from some other melody, there are just not as many of them mathematically possible as there are distinctive lines of text. And if you look at something like you look at something like a pop lyric, which is about 200 words in many cases. If you take the English language, which has about, arguably functionally maybe about 10,000 words, it has more, but imagine just about 10,000 options for each of those 200 word positions, and you've got 10,000 to the power of 200 possible word strings. Not to mention line. I'm not sure if line breaks matter, but try to calculate that number, and it's pretty big compared to whatever they registered for melodies, which was not even complete, and really they've admitted it can't possibly be complete. It's a much larger number. So maybe in the distant future, and these things do always creep up on us quickly, don't they? Maybe in the distant future, somebody will be able to do the same thing with text, but it will not be very soon. Okay. In the meantime, what this means is if you've written a song, the melody is either not copyright protectable or it is far less copyright protectable than the lyric. That also means, though, that there's going to be more contention over the originality of the lyric than there is over the originality of the melody. Now, why does this matter to you if you are a lyricist or a songwriter? It matters in this way. If you've seen this other news item where it is claimed researchers project that sometime in the next 5 or 10 years, artificial intelligences will make it impossible for human pop songwriters to compete. On the melody standpoint, it kind of doesn't matter, because if effectively every melody is in public domain, there's really not any need to compete. It's just a matter of selection. The lyrics, on the other hand, if pop songs are being written by artificial intelligences, and we see the same thing happening with that as we see with pop, AIs trying to write melodies, it actually could create a greater value for pop songs written by humans. I know that's counterintuitive, or at least you think that's counterintuitive. The way it works is that artificial intelligences, they don't really understand what they're doing or why they're doing it. They just do it. So they have a training set. The training set, I guess, in this case would be some ranked order of existing pop song lyrics, and they're going to be competing with each other. And if we see them doing in this way what they've already done with selecting songs written by humans, it's not going to be exactly what many people already imagine it's going to be. With what you've got right now is you've got algorithms selecting songs as probable hits, and at multiple companies, multiple media companies are just saying this is probably a hit, this is probably not a hit, and the songs are written by humans, or at least we think they are. Okay, but once a song is a hit, it goes back into the training set, and here we get what I call data incest, and I don't know who else calls it that, but that's what I call it. When a product of the training set goes back into the training set, the content of the training set becomes more and more regular. It becomes more homogeneous and more predictable. So one company picks a hit, has a hit, and it goes into the training set, and a different company says, let's put that in our training set. I don't want to over-explain this, but the idea is that you've got machines trying to outguess each other to see what the other machine is going to guess is a hit, and that's the process. They're only incidentally including any human preference that creeps into the process. Okay, but human preference probably does creep into the process, just less and less all the time. And if you're like me, you suspect that artificial intelligences are already being used to write not only melodies, but at least portions of lyric content in pop songs. And I know this has been done deliberately and transparently in some ways, but it sounds sometimes like that's more than that. Consequences of using artificial intelligences to pick pop songs seem to include things that actually make sense if you look at them, or maybe it's confirmation bias, but it's been noted by other people on YouTube that distorted guitar has pretty much disappeared from the charts. My hypothesis there is, well, number one, guitars are never really in tune. Really? Yeah. Guitars are never really in tune. Okay, musical fact. Okay, if you distort that, if you then distort the waveform, that should make it comparatively difficult for artificial intelligence to compare a collection of those waveforms and try to decide which ones are better than others. It's a very complex set of criteria. It's easier for the system to say, well, we like this synth patch better than that synth patch. Those are comparatively easy things to analyze. Okay, another thing is the millennial whoop, I suspect, is an artifact of data incest. Not because humans don't have some kind of preference for a certain number of minor thirds, okay? Alternating minor thirds in a melody. They seem to like it. You look at the songs Toot Toot Tootsie and song Carolina in the Morning. Yeah, there are enough pop songs going back a long time that have alternating minor thirds that, yeah, people seem to like them. But in the millennial whoop, it seems like more and more songs have more and more minor thirds, and it to the point where some people have said that it's bothersome. And it may be just that machines are saying, well, wouldn't one more minor third also work? And then another machine says, well, why not one more? And so it's kind of snowballing. Where will it end? Well, in 2022, Toot Toot Tootsie Goodbye is going to come into public domain because of Music Modernization Act. And that potentiates a large number of people recording and releasing versions of Toot Toot Tootsie Goodbye. And it kind of rolls down the red carpet for Disney to try to somehow recapitalize this thing in a way that makes them want to think that they can copyright protect it directly or indirectly, or somehow squeeze some lawsuit money out of it. So, I mean, it's not certain they would do that, but if you've seen Disney's behavior up until now, there's no reason to think they would not do that. So look out for Toot Toot Tootsie in 2022. In the meantime, though, millennial whoop. How far can it go? Well, it's at some point something's got to give. Something's got to give. So that's when you see that, and it will be soon. I want you to try to remember what I said about something has to give with the millennial whoop. Because the same thing eventually would happen with lyrics. If you have machines writing the lyrics, or even just picking lyrics in the same way, eventually a trend is going to go to a point where consumers are no longer find it appealing. You're going to get into that uncanny valley where only the machine really thinks that it's doing its job anymore. Would that be soon? I don't know. But you do have this. If machines are writing the lyrics in the same way that they're picking melodies right now, the lyrics are going to start getting very similar. Very similar. And so a question that music companies are going to have to ask is, what are our chances of getting sued for this lyric? If this is a hit lyric, what are the chances that we're not going to get sued for it? Okay, or chances that we're not going to have to sue somebody for it? It becomes an important legal question because the number of viable lyrics is going to change in a way that forces them to ask that question. Why does this matter to people writing lyrics? It matters because humans are extremely fallible. Okay? In terms of trying to do what the machines are trying to do. And every time they get it wrong, they're going to introduce some element that makes the material copyright defensible. So even if it's not, if it doesn't sound like a hit lyric, just the fact that you probably won't get sued for it, or that if you have to sue somebody for it, you probably can do that, makes it more legally valuable. So the shift is away from original melodies to original lyrics. Is that really going to happen? I don't know. Every swan is black when your eyes are shut. But I don't, at this point, I don't see any other way that it can play out. I don't see any other way that it can play out. If every melody belongs to everyone, then the next question is, does this sound like a lyric that is actually an original lyric?